another week of Bible story. And thus far, we've gone through four different stories. The first story was the story of Jesus healing the servant of the centurion. The second week, we saw how Jesus was able to calm by his word the winds, the wave, and the sea. In the third week, we saw Jesus healed the demoniac, cast out the evil spirits, and we saw how Jesus had power over evil spirits as well. Last week, we saw something remarkable. We saw how Jesus not only had the power to heal, but also the power to forgive sins. And this week, as we go through John chapter 4, we see something no less remarkable. And so this story is taken from John 4, and this is Jesus and the Samaritan woman, and this is our story. Then came a woman from Samaria to draw water, and Jesus said to her, "Give me to drink." Now the disciples had gone off to the city to go buy food. So the Samaritan woman said to Jesus, "How is it that you, a Jew, ask me, a Samaritan woman, for water?" And Jesus said, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is that says to you, 'Give me a drink,' you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water." The woman said, "Sir, you have nothing to draw water with, and the well is deep. How is it that you will get this living water? Are you greater than our father Jacob, who gave us this well? He himself, as well as his sons and cattle, all drank from this water." And Jesus said, "Everyone who drinks this water will thirst again. But whoever drinks the water that I will give him shall never thirst. And that water that I will give him will become in him a well springing up to eternal life." The woman said, "Give me this water that I may never thirst, and that I may never have to come back to this well." But Jesus said to her, "Go back, call your husband, and come back here." And the woman said, I have no husband." Jesus said, "You've said correctly. You have no husband. You've had 5 husbands, and the man that you are currently with is not your husband." And so the woman said to him, "Sir, I perceive you are a prophet. Our fathers worshipped in this mountain, and you people say that you must worship in Jerusalem." Jesus said, "Woman, believe me, the hour is coming that neither in this mountain nor in Jerusalem will you worship the Father. You know not where to worship. We know that salvation is of the Jews. But an hour is coming when true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth. For such people seeks the Father, they that will worship him in spirit and truth." And the woman said, "I know Messiah is coming, and when he comes, he will declare to us all things." And Jesus said to her, "I who am speaking with you am he." Now, the disciples come back and they see that Jesus is talking to this woman, and they're amazed. But at the same time, they don't say anything like, why is he talking to her? And what business does he have with the Samaritan woman? Well, she had left her bag and her water pot and gone back to the town, where she tells everybody there, "I have met someone who told me everything I've ever done. Is this not the Christ?" And the people that were in the town were perplexed, but they thought, "Let us go out and speak to him." So this ends our story. Now, a few questions. First of all, can anybody tell me who are the main characters of this story?
Jesus and the Samaritan woman.
Jesus, the Samaritan woman. Can anybody tell me any additional characters in this story?
Disciples and townspeople.
Yeah, and the townspeople. Now, what about summarizing, or just tell me what's the story telling us?
So Jesus had gone and had a physical need of water. He was thirsty and asked the Samaritan woman to give him a drink. The I guess the height of the story is when he, tells her, hey, this water is not going to satisfy you. Um, and if you really knew who you were talking to, you would ask for the living water. Um, and so telling her that, hey, I'm someone much more than what I would appear to be. And so ends up letting her know that he is the Messiah. He is the one who they had been waiting for.
Yeah. Yeah. So Jesus, initially, it looks like he's just thirsty. And that engages this conversation with the Samaritan woman on what appears to be just a physical need. But then I guess you would say he turns the tables to reflect, as you were saying, something deeper, to show that he was someone more that could offer more. What did he offer? What specifically was he offering? Do you remember, Zoe?
Eternal life.
Eternal life. What did he call that eternal life?
Living water.
Living water. That's right. So he's offering her a water that she will never thirst again. And so that's the way he's trying to reel her in to I guess, buy into who he is. I'm going to give you a water that is eternal, a water that if you drink this, you'll never thirst again. So what would you say? Let's see here. What would be the main point of the story? What do you think, Zoe?
The main point of the story.
What do you think is, and we had talked about this before, what do you think as far as what Jesus is trying to do?
Well, I'd say that what Jesus is telling us as a whole is that we need to go and reach those who don't know about him and tell them that he is the Messiah.
So that's something for us to obey, and you're right. But I'm thinking when we see the main point, it's Jesus is always trying to show who his real identity. He's trying to get people to see that what you perceive isn't exactly the whole truth. And so he's opening the eyes of people to show them who he is. And so by this simple interaction with, here's water, or I'm thirsty, give me drink, he's able to open up to her to eventually share with her that he is who?
The Messiah.
The Messiah. Yeah. And there's a part in the story where she gets it. It's something that he says, not just a living water, but she really gets it because he knows something about her that she thinks, how would he know that? What is that?
Well, he perceives her life.
He perceives her life.
She's the five husbands, so he knows things about her that not just anyone would know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. He knows stuff about her that there's no other way that anybody else would know, and it clicks with her. It's like, wow, I heard that Messiah is coming, and it starts to click with her. Okay, this guy is something maybe special, and so the conversation shifts from the well and the water to, and then Jesus hits this big part where he starts to change the whole conversation of worshiping. Do you remember what he says, that how there's going to come a day, whether you're Jew or Samaritan, who's going to worship, or how will worship be?
People will worship the Father in spirit and truth.
Yeah,
It's not just a place.
it's not just a place. So it's not just the physical water, it's living water. It's not the mountain or Jerusalem, it's spirit and truth. So you see how it keeps changing from physical temporal things to spiritual things. So what's something we could obey in this passage? Like, and I know this is maybe a difficult question, but what is something that you think, if you were to read this, what's the takeaway for how do I obey this passage?
Um, so obviously, going to tell others that Jesus is the Messiah, um, that the promised one has come, um, and two, that there is no separation of people, that, it doesn't matter if you're Samaritan or Jew, Jesus came to save you regardless of your background. And so that's part of, what we need to remember
Yeah,
is that it doesn't matter what religion you are, you still need Jesus as your, to get this living water.
yeah. So he kind of breaks down a barrier that there's not some people that the kingdom is for. Salvation is of the Jews. It comes through the Jewish line because Jesus was Jewish, but he's inviting, in essence, everybody to come. There'll come a day that he says they're not going to just worship in Jerusalem or on that mountain where the Samaritans, but that all who worship the Father will worship in spirit and truth. And so we can obey this passage by sharing with people, not having, I guess, boundaries, whether it's ethnic or soci- social, socioeconomic. Thank you. Boundaries, absolutely. Um, and so something we can obey. Who's somebody we can tell? How do we share this kind of passage?
Maybe someone who might seem religious, like they could be, by all accounts, a good, moral, religious person, but they don't know Jesus. Sometimes people like that kind of escape under the radar, and so,
Yeah,
Or even someone with um, fleshly desires, drinking, or,
yeah,
it's like, hey man, you're never gonna find what you're looking for
yeah.
because the only quench of the thirst you have is Jesus.
That's right. So that's excellent, both of y'all. That's excellent because it who somebody we can share this with is people who are religious, maybe people who don't have understanding, who are just striving and need to know that Jesus is that living water that satisfies that thirst of being overly religious, that he is there as that resting place, that resource to never thirst again. And like Amanda said, or just a worldly person is trying to satisfy their lustful or worldly cravings. Because she was married 5 times, obviously she had many relationships, and so she was trying to fill that thirst with something. And so this isn't a coincidence that Jesus interacts with her, you know, um, interacts with her and says, I've got living water. You drink this water, you never thirst again. And so and that's really the key to this whole passage is the fact that he is that living water that satisfies our heart's desire, that quenches that thirst, that gives us the satisfaction to not desire the things of this world. So great job, guys. Great job.